Mess with your soul like ether. Teach you the key.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. It's Moose and Keith with you right here on the Better Sports Network. Happy Hump Day, as I like to say. Thanks for being with us. I know it's a little strange this week because Keith and I didn't, but majority of people had Monday off for Memorial Day, obviously, and we're a day away from the start of the NBA Finals. We'll get into that conversation. Good show. Dave Barnett, Tour Junkies, will join us top of the 11 o'clock hour. Dive deep into the NBA, all the different storylines. Brian Geltzeiler will join the program right around 11:30 this morning. So looking forward to catching up with Geltz, and that'll be an interesting conversation. But it's the last day of May. Like, training camps are about 6.5 weeks away in the National Football League. And, a lot of the talk and the conversation has been about Aaron Rodgers, and rightfully so, as the Jets are the biggest storyline in the National Football League going into training camp and going into the start of the regular season, because you're looking at a four-time MVP of the NFL, Hall of Famer, obviously legendary Green Bay Packer, going to close out his career in New York trying to win a Vince Lombardi trophy with the New York Jets. But other interesting storylines going on. We touched upon Hopkins. We'll get into another layer to the DeAndre Hopkins, which Keith mentioned yesterday and got a little bit more kind of some legs to it yesterday afternoon. Get into that. But what about what's going on, Keith? First off, good morning. Happy Wednesday. And What about what's going on in Vegas right now with the Raiders and Jimmy Garoppolo and his contract?
So I love, all right, so something that we get a chance to do in this career, right? Like, we talk sports. That's what we get paid to do. That's what we're trained to do. Every once in a while, we become meteorologists. Every once in a while, we become therapists. Every once in a while, we become lawyers. And reading through all the contract stuff for Jimmy G, like, some of it, I'll be honest with you, I didn't fully understand exactly what it meant, but most of it I get. So, all right, so let's peel this back. So Moose, when there was that pause in whether or not, yes, Wally Montero, we actually do get paid. We, in the chat, I love you guys. There was that pause into whether or not Jimmy was going to sign the contract, he had to pass a physical, whatever, right? There was an addendum, which was put in there about a waiver and a release. Did you read this full segment? Because I'll read it to everybody out there. Did you get a chance to really read it?
I did. But just for clarity, why don't you read it for everybody?
All right. So first and foremost, it addresses the foot injury that the Garoppolo had in the 2022 season. Now I'm going to read you the quote part. Because of a pre-existing metal and middle cuneiform and a fracture of the base of the second metatarsal in the player's left foot, and that the club would not enter into NFL player contract with the player. It's the injury he suffered during the season, right? So now the contract then preserves the team's ability to terminate the agreement with no further obligation. Quote, for any reason related to the waiver and the release attached as Addendum G, which is just hilarious because Jimmy G, right? Addendum G. The waiver becomes null and void if at any time during the 23 season Garoppolo passes a physical exam, but then is active for at least one regular season game and does not suffer a re-injury of that. Essentially, what the Vegas Raiders did was they said, if we sign you and then you can't play because of something with this foot, or really we just deem it's because of the foot, we can cut you. We can trade you. No harm, no foul on our end.
Well, right. He's got if he doesn't pass a physical, they can get rid of him and they're free and clear. There was no signing bonus, right? The signing bonus got converted over to basically a salary, but under the stipulation that, that foot has to pass a physical by the Vegas Raiders doctors. So, you hope and wait. I mean, the other interesting thing is, he had an additional surgery after signing with the Raiders, on that left foot, and that injury that he suffered with the San Francisco 49ers. So clearly, they were not happy, and we were all kind of waiting at the time. Why wasn't there any kind of press conference? Why wasn't there anything? Why didn't they make any kind of hoopla out there in Vegas after bringing Jimmy Garoppolo aboard? And now we know the reason why. But, I mean, think about this. I mean, you are the Vegas Raiders, year 2, Josh McDaniel. You couldn't wait to get Derek Carr out the door. Derek Carr is now down in New Orleans. John Gruden is now working with the New Orleans Saints and Derek Carr to get him adjusted to the new offense, because Dennis Allen, obviously, a former Raider head coach and a guy that's been around the circles, the coach of the New Orleans Saints, brings in the quarterback expertise of John Gruden down there, the Saints. So you got Carr, who you basically sent home with his homework last year and said, get lost. We have no interest in you. Stidham's gone, right? He signed and he's a backup quarterback someplace else. You got Brian Hoyer, who always seems to latch on with one of these former Patriot assistants. At some point in time, he's going to be a backup quarterback. And we've seen it, whether it be Houston, whether it be Cleveland, whether it be back to New England. Now he's out in Vegas and he's backing up Jimmy Garoppolo. Imagine if you're the Vegas Raiders and opening week, it's Brian Hoyer's your starting quarterback and Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't pass his physical and you're looking to take a massive step forward. And then you get to the layer of Davante Adams, who Davante Adams wants to pat himself on the back time and time again, saying, listen, I'm not a product of Aaron Rodgers. By the way, I don't know what person or what individual out there ever said that Davante Adams was a product or
I don't remember people saying that.
No one's ever said that. No one's ever said that. I proved that I can do it without Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, no doubt. You're an unbelievable receiver. I think most people and most scouts in the National Football League would tell you, physically speaking, from a route running, hands, speed, touchdown perspective, that Davante Adams is the most talented wide receiver because he's multiple, can do a lot of different things for you in the National Football League, right? That's even with, Jay Jettis up there in Minnesota. That's with the Cheetah down there in Miami, Tyreek Hill, is that he is the best receiver. Now, with all of that, you're the Raiders here. Now you've got a huge question mark at the quarterback position because who knows? That it's great for them that they put, this addendum into his contract and they've protected themselves as an organization. But how about if you're Jimmy Garoppolo with addendum G? Now at any point, think about this. He could pass his physical and the foot could be A-okay. If he suffers any kind of a left foot injury in the 2023 season, addendum G kicks into place.
Amazing.
Think about that. Think about that. You want to talk about and I understand Garoppolo has made a lot of money over the course of his NFL career. I get it. I understand it. But that leads to a lot of speculation, the fear of God that the Raiders have to put this addendum in there that basically that foot, Keith, is not going to hold up.
This feels a lot like the Carlos Correa situation, doesn't it? Listen, Correa ended up getting a boatload of money to go back to Minnesota, but you had multiple teams back out on deals with Correa after physicals and what may or may not, be eroding foot. Is that the right way to put it? I think so. Carlos Correa, by the way, also has stunk so far in Minnesota this season. But Jimmy Garoppolo, I don't know if this is him betting on himself with this, even signing this deal, or this was him and his agent realizing, we're not 100% healthy, but we might be able to get through a season or two. So we'll say yes to this addendum because nobody else is going to.
But they've got no other choice.
Yeah, no one else is going to sign us because we're not going to pass the physical the way that everyone wants us to.
Well, no doubt about it. Especially, the way I read it, he had another surgery after signing, correct?
Right. Yes.
Okay, so I'm not getting that fact wrong. I just want to make sure about that I didn't misread that. So he got another surgery after signing. Yeah, he's not going to get the kind of money that he was looking or that the Vegas Raiders gave him in NFL free agency from any other team because he's damaged goods. So the Raiders are going out there. I don't fault the Raiders for protecting themselves. Here's what you look at, though. If you're Josh McDaniel, this is the way you're going to go down. A Raider team that, you're in a AFC that has, Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes, a Russell Wilson looking to revitalize himself with Sean Payton.
And by the way, Jarrett Stidham is Russell Wilson's backup now in Denver.
Right. Stidham's now in Denver, right? You got Russell Wilson in Denver. You've got obviously Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson. A lot of expectations now on Kenny Pickett, not to that level in year
Trevor
two.
Lawrence.
Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. Then you got Josh Allen, Tua, Aaron Rodgers, and let's not forget my favorite guy, Mac Jones in New England. You look at the complexion of the AFC, and I say that sarcastically, obviously, about Mac Jones.
I hope everyone understands that, yes.
You look at the complexion of the AFC now, if you don't have Garoppolo, and listen, I think Garoppolo is the guy that everyone just likes to lay into for the sake of laying into. He was 41-19 as a starter in San Francisco. And you want to say, well, look at the team that was around him. So then should I make that big of a deal about Brock Purdy or maybe Trey Lance really stinks? If it's a case where you minimize the quarterback and the quarterback doesn't have any kind of an impact or you can win with basically anybody given the talent level around him, then if you're the 49ers, why would you give up all the draft capital that you did to go get Trey Lance in the NFL draft a couple of years ago? And now you have a fear that Trey Lance can't go out there and play, as everyone's talking about Sam Darnold. So I do think Garoppolo doesn't get the respect that he necessarily deserves, but I have no idea what to expect. Like, if I'm a Raider fan here, I'm really as nervous as can be, because I have a team that I thought potentially is going to be a little bit better defensively this year. I've got Devontae Adams. I've got Jacobs running the football. Like, there are things to like about this Raiders team. Year 2, McDaniel getting his kind of guys around him. Garoppolo has shown you when healthy, he can win football games. And now potentially, I don't even have Jimmy G. I got Brian Hoyer as my starting quarterback. I mean, that is going to be a dumpster fire of a year for the Vegas Raiders.
Brian Hoyer, Chase Garbers. I've never heard that.
I've never heard of Chase
ever
Garbers
in my life. And Aiden O'Connell, that is the rookie from Minnesota. Purdue. Thank you. So those are the 3 QBs that are on the roster, along with Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, I compiled a list for us, okay?
Chase Garbers, by the way, went to Cal.
Oh, okay.
That's stunk.
Great.
They were terrible.
Cal Bears.
He wore number 7.
He didn't wear number 8 because Aaron Rodgers.
I've never seen Chase Garbers throw the football.
Nope, never even heard of him.
No.
We were talking about Paw
Sorry
Patrol.
to distract you. I just want to give everyone.
No, you're fine.
I've never heard of him either. So there you go.
So the list of QBs that I'll give you, and I'm going to tell you what's not going to happen, and then I'm going to tell you what could happen. Tom Brady, get it out of everyone's head. It's not going to happen. He's not going to be the Vegas Raiders quarterback. I was reading through some of the stuff that you would have to jump, the hoops that he would have to jump through. So right now he's trying to get approved to become a minority owner of the Vegas Raiders. There is people have to vote yes. No one's going to be voting yes on him to get that role if they think he also now wants to become a player, because you're not going to be able to do both. And then they're going to have to vote on that. But like, there's just too many things there. I don't see it happening. I would give that like 0.5% chance, like 1% chance that Brady is the Vegas quarterback. Okay. Now we get to like, these are the names that are out there. Matt Ryan, Jameis Winston, you'd have to trade for. Andy Dalton, you have to trade for. And Jacoby Brissett, who was with McDaniels back in 2016 in New England, you'd have to trade for. Are any of those 4 names making Raiders fans go, yay, we're going to win? I don't think so.
No. They're all out there for a reason. Like
maybe Jameis?
What's that even? Yeah, I mean,
I guess.
I guess Jameis. I mean, Brady's obviously the best of the bunch, but yes. Tom Brady, there's really no conversation to be had about the quality of the player that he is. It's just a matter of, I don't think he wants to play football any longer. I mean, I think he's interested in doing other things, in his life at this stage. Matt Ryan's shot. Let's all be honest. Like, I'm sure
he's not officially retired.
I understand that. He is, if you've watched him play. I mean, he's just downright terrible.
Baker's in Tampa Bay, Jay.
Baker's in Tampa Bay. By the way, Jay, look up the video yesterday of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers OTAs and Trask and Mayfield throwing passes, just overthrowing like wide open players.
No defense.
They were just like running routes.
Yeah.
And they couldn't even, I mean, they hit a couple in stride, but the first three throws that they made were embarrassingly bad. Like, I watched it like 5 times yesterday at WPIX. I was like laughing hysterically. I needed a little something to give me a laugh. Like, not that I'm looking for them to fail. It was just very, very funny.
Ernie, Ernie, if you could find that video for us, we'll roll that video and give everybody a laugh.
It is amazing video. So, I mean, you run down the list of quarterbacks. Ryan, I think he'll do a nice job with you, Keith, over there at CBS. And
yep.
But I don't think he's got any game left. Jameis Winston's been a turnover machine. Andy Dalton, the Red Rifle, we've seen the best of him, and that was with the Cincinnati Bengals. Jacoby Brissett, I think, is more of a backup quarterback than an answer. And I said it a long time ago, I don't think Carson Wentz is going to be in the NFL this year.
Yeah, you did.
I mean, I don't think there's a team out there that values Carson Wentz. I don't think they look at him as having an answer. I think he's a guy that's shown himself not to be all that coachable, and I don't think he adds much to the quarterback room, because if you're a veteran quarterback now and you are not a starter, and I don't think there's a team out there that looks at Carson Wentz as being a viable starter after the failures in Indianapolis and Washington. what is he going to add to the room? Like, is he going to make that room better? I don't think necessarily Carson Wentz does that for any NFL team. So I'm at this stage, I don't think Carson Wentz is in the NFL. And if I'm the Raiders, Carson Wentz would be the last guy, the antithesis of what the Vegas Raiders and the New England Patriots system in Vegas now are looking for. They want guys that are coachable. They're going to work within the system. They're not going to look at guys that have shown themselves to basically feel like they have all the answers. And Carson Wentz historically has been a guy that's pushed back on coaching.
Yeah, I don't want Carson Wentz if I'm the Vegas.
There's no other great options.
Like there isn't.
I mean, there really isn't. I mean, I'm not.
That was all I could find too. Like I was going through stuff. I couldn't find anybody else that either would be available via trades or that's out there in the market.
Yeah, I mean, the guy would be is like, Mark Davis basically going on bended knee and praying to Tom Brady to come back and play quarterback. I mean, that's it. And listen, I don't want to come across like it's over definitively for Jimmy Garoppolo, but I would say this: there are reasons why teams put those kind of addendums into contracts. And when the medical staff basically has the fear of that foot being able to hold up, when he goes back in and has yet another surgery on that left foot, and they cover themselves just in case that left foot does not heal properly, to where if he does not pass a physical before the start of the season, that Jimmy Garoppolo's $22.5 million or $23.5 million that he would be owed this year because there was no signing bonus, got pushed to a base salary, the Vegas Raiders could get out from underneath it. When an organization does that, I think it sends a message to everybody out there, Joe and Jane Q public, that honestly, like, you should be fearful about whether or not Jimmy Garoppolo can be there. It's the same reason why, they got a lot of pushback and they eventually took the addendum out of the contract. But it's the same reason why the Arizona Cardinals had the language in the contract to Kyler Murray that away from the practice facility, you actually must study football. You must look at game film. You must look at plans. You must look at, the defenses we're going up against. You have to spend time away from our facility and actually look at what we're trying to do week in and week out. They put that in for a reason because he wasn't doing it. Now, people push back on and say, how dare you? I mean, what are you doing? This and that. He's a professional. Well, no. They did it because there have historically been guys in the NFL that don't. Michael Vick. I mean, I love Michael Vick. I mean, I remember that interview that he had, after he got out of prison and he was coming back into the National Football League. And he was getting interviewed. His name is slipping my mind. Who was his head coach down in Atlanta, who then became an analyst on, and is Jim Mora Jr., right? They used to make videos like DVDs when they were DVD players, right? They used to send it home to them of, all 22 cut-ups, what you need to be watching to get yourself ready. And I remember Mora Jr. was then working for the NFL Network, interviewing Michael Vick and saying, we used to give you all these videos every week. Did you ever watch them? He said, no, I threw them all in the back of my car. He goes, You've never watched one of them? He goes, no, coach, I didn't do the work at home. I just threw it in the back of my car. So but Vic was able to overcome that because he was so athletically gifted. That's the point. So there's reasons for everything. So I'd be a little fearful if I'm the Raiders and if I'm a Raider fan about Jimmy Garoppolo being healthy.
We've got Baker video. You want to see this? You want to laugh?
Yeah, it's great.
All right, everybody, let's laugh.
Yeah, wow. I mean, it's just the first 4 throws, and they start hitting guys late.
And again, it could be they could be backups,
NFL quarterbacks,
but they could be backup tight ends not running the right route. Maybe trying to be nice.
Keith,
could they run faster?
They were terrible throws.
Horrible, yes. Kyle Trask has some nice calves, though.
That's like you having a catch with your son Austin in the backyard. That's how difficult those throws should be. Those should be right on the numbers.
Yeah. Like, even if it's a little behind you, that's fine. But like, it should be in the catch radius. There were 3 or 4 throws that were not even in the catch radius.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing video.
That was good. That was good video.
It's just primetime Jimmy. Primetime Baker, and what is it? Kyle Trask. Right?
Kyle Trask.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly right. We'll come back. We'll talk a little bit about where DeAndre Hopkins. We spent a little time yesterday talking about D-Hop because the stories have been a little bit of a battle of the arms race. Maybe the Buffalo Bills or the Kansas City Chiefs as 2 teams that are really intrigued in bringing in D-Hop, who I believe is 31, right?
Yep.
DeAndre, 31 years old. So that was the report yesterday. Another team jumped into the mix. A very familiar quarterback to DeAndre Hopkins as well. Something that Keith hit upon yesterday as being a possibility. We'll get into that. We'll do that next. He's Keith Arizari. I'm Mark Malusis. The show is Moose and Keith. Thanks for being with us. Good morning, Jay Cabasa. Good morning, Wally Montero. Everybody in our chat session, we appreciate you being with us on this Wednesday. We're coming back right here on the Better Sports Network.
Let me talk to you, Vlad, about an award here that I thought was very, very debatable. And it was Cy Young in the National League. In terms of odds, it's Strider at plus 230, Zach Gallen at plus 215, Clayton Kershaw plus 1,000. Clayton Kershaw, to me, his numbers are phenomenal and better, or at least right there with these other 2. Strider was my preseason pick to win the award. But Clayton Kershaw at plus 1,000 compared to these other guys with similar numbers in the plus 200s. Like, let's bang on Kershaw and hope he doesn't get hurt, right? Where are you at with that, Vlad?
Yeah, those are great odds. I think the only concern that fantasy players and Dodgers fans had before the season started was innings limitations. Just wanting to make sure that he is fully ramped up for the playoffs. And as some teams do, you sometimes get those phantom IL stints. And we might see that sometime maybe around the All-Star break with Kershaw just to preserve his arm over the second half of the season. But, man, he's a great pick. If you're telling me those are the odds, that's really, really nice. I do love your Spencer Strider pick. I think that's what I would have done in the preseason and bet on him. He's an absolute beast. So, but Clayton Kershaw at plus 1,000, those are phenomenal odds. And you mentioned Zach Gallen. He's incredible too. And looks like Arizona has been in the hunt there in the playoff. Well, so far it's early. Dodgers, maybe Padres will be in competition for that division. But yeah, that's a nice 3-way race, and we might see some other players pop in there.
Bye weeks are so incredibly important in baseball because you can't change your lineup. You can't grab somebody off the waiver wire. You don't make changes. So you've got to be prepared. If you're taking 4 quarterbacks because you want to be sure you got to be very methodical about the schedule, especially the bye weeks.
Yeah, that's a good point by you, because I don't, in redraft leagues and in especially in dynasty leagues, I don't give a damn about bye weeks in a dynasty league. I'm taking the talent that I need, especially if it's like a startup dynasty league, man. And so, that's created situation. Matt Deutsch's league last year, I had a glut of, it was like week 9, I seem to remember. It was the bye week of death for me. Like, it's a 2 quarterback league. I had a bunch of QBs, and they were like all on the bye at the same week. It was insane. At best ball, you've got to really be strategic about that. And it's almost more important than the statistics that you might put next to the player as the bye week to let you know, no, I can't go there because I got this guy, this guy, and this guy already.
You have an opportunity to get a quarterback you want, but your first 2 have the same bye week. You just can't do that to yourself. You have to be thinking it through. I do pay attention to bye weeks in my drafts. I just do. It makes me a lot less of a struggle bus situation when it comes to Buymageddon. I don't want to have 4 players. I don't want to have all my wide receivers and just be playing scrubs. I don't want to have to get rid of a player that I like, that's healthy, that's performing for me just because out of desperation.
Welcome back. Moose and Keith with you on this Wednesday, the last day of May the 31st. Thanks for being with us. And we got you right up until high noon. Dave Barnett, a little golf, will join us top of the 11 o'clock hour. Brian Geltzeiler from SiriusXM NBA Radio will join us right around 11:30 this morning. So we'll preview the NBA Finals, which get going tomorrow night. We'll get into a little bit of the association a little bit later on in the program as well, and give you some thoughts and storylines, fallout on Boston and what should happen next for the Celtics after their Game 7 loss on Memorial Day night.
Trade everyone. Get rid of everybody.
Well, that's exactly right. Blow it all up and be careful with all of that. But Keith, DeAndre Hopkins, because I'll give you were ahead of the curve yesterday because you mentioned the very fact of the reports were about Kansas City and Buffalo, and you said don't be surprised about if there's another team potentially that jumps into the race for DeAndre Hopkins, and that team was the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, I like the idea of the Cleveland Browns. Listen, Cleveland Browns are nothing to write home about, except for if you dig deeper, it all comes down to this. If you believe that DeShaun Watson can turn back the clock 3 years, 4 years ago and become the guy that was considered one of the 4 or 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL, if DeShaun Watson is that guy again, it is a destination landing spot for any wide receiver, most notably a DeAndre Hopkins, who has a relationship with him, had his best seasons in the NFL with him. You've got one of the 3 or 4 or 5 best running backs in the NFL in Nick Chubb. You've got a solid offensive line. You've got Amari Cooper there. You've got a few tight ends that can play football. You have a defense that was considered a top 10 defense in the NFL, and that defensive front is one of the best in the NFL. Throw it all together in a loaded division. I get it. In a loaded conference. I get it. Is there an easier path for DeAndre Hopkins to get what is eluding him and get far into the playoffs and maybe into a conference championship or to Super Bowl? Yes, there are other avenues there. When you put it all together, going back to play with your buddy, DeShaun Watson, and I wanted to double check that I was right about this. So take a look at the numbers that Watson had when he played with DeAndre Hopkins and vice versa. I'm going to give you the Hopkins numbers.
Yeah, let's hear.
So 2014, second year in the league for the Texans, Hopkins had 12-10 in the air, 15-21 in the air, 954 in the air, 1378, 1572, 1165. Like those are all of his years in Houston. Some of it is with Watson. Some of it is with Watson in and out of the lineup. Nonetheless, also touchdowns. He had seasons of 11, 13, 11, 6. At his peak, DeAndre Hopkins, Nuke as they called him, was one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. Why not go back and play with your buddy?
Right. Here would be my question, though. What's the motivation right now for DeAndre Hopkins?
To get far into the playoffs.
All right, to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah. I always say, like, get to a conference championship, because if you're there, anything can happen.
All right, fair enough. Would you put the Browns, and everything you said is true. D-Hop and Watson were really productive down in Houston together. The Cleveland Browns are not without talent. It's still the Browns. They seem to find ways to get in their own way at times as well. But if you look at the Browns, would you say you feel good with how loaded that AFC is if you're DeAndre Hopkins, if your motivation is to get to the AFC title game, that if you go to Cleveland, you're going to get there? All right, as compared to potentially some of the other teams in the AFC, or going to what is a really, really watered down NFC.
I like the way you worded that. All right, so let's pull up the odds. The Chiefs are plus 350 to win the AFC. Anything can happen, but let me ask you a question. Would you feel confident in the Chiefs being in the AFC Championship?
I would.
Right? Okay. The Bengals are plus 475 to win to win the conference. Would you feel pretty confident they could get to the conference championship? The Bengals.
Yeah, not as confident. No, not as confident as Kansas City. But
right.
Yes, I love Burrow. We've talked about, I have a man crush on Joe Burrow.
Right? I know you do. And I like that you said not as confident. So the Chiefs are here. Now we're going to go down the line. The Bills are plus 475 again to win the conference. How confident do you feel about them getting to a conference championship?
Well, now with Rodgers in the AFC East, not nearly because I think this time a year ago, and we hadn't begun our show yet on the Better Sports Network. I mean, everybody and their mother was all over the Buffalo Bills. This past year was going to be their year. So the Bills were where the Chiefs were. I don't think I have that level of confidence anymore in Buffalo.
Good. I like what we're doing here. The Jets, 8-1 odds to win the conference.
I have more confidence in the Jets than I do the Bills.
Cool. That's good. The Chargers are 13-1.
No.
Thank you very much. The Denver Broncos are also
No.
13-1. Thank you very much. The Baltimore Ravens, 14-1.
I think the Baltimore Ravens with Lamar are going to surprise some people this year. I think if they stay healthy, I think the Ravens are one of those teams that at 14-1, it's worth a sprinkle.
Love that. The Dolphins, 14-1.
I'm not a huge Dolphin fan. I know there are
Same.
supporters. I'm not there. I'm not on board with Miami.
Jaguars are 15-1.
Like the Jaguars more than Miami.
And then we get to the Browns at 17-1, and that is not with DeAndre Hopkins.
All right, so if they get DeAndre Hopkins, you think they move to 15-1?
I think they go 14-1 with the Ravens. Same as the Ravens.
Same as the Ravens, if they get DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I think the Chargers and the Broncos at 13-1, too high. So, like, ideally, if I were setting these numbers, Chiefs would be at the top. Bengals, Bills, Jets are the next three. I'm perfectly fine with that. And then I would have the Browns and the Ravens there at like 5 and 6 with DeAndre Hopkins. So I think there's legs to stand on to say that if DeAndre Hopkins goes to Cleveland, pairs up with Amari Cooper and DeShaun Watson and Nick Chubb, and who knows what ends up happening with Kareem Hunt if he ends up deciding to sign back with the Cleveland Browns, that is a team that could win that division. And if you win your division, there's a realistic chance you can get to a conference championship.
All right, there's a big assumption there. We'll get to that here momentarily. Let's hear from DeShaun. Let's hear from DeShaun Watson. Yesterday spoke about D-Hop and staying in contact with his former teammate with the Houston Texans. Take a listen.
Your boy Hopkins.
Well, me and D-Hop, we just naturally talk. We've been talking since, the Houston days, and then also whenever he left for Arizona, we were always talking. So, he's always been a brother of mine since I was coming out of high school. Our connection, our relationship has always been great. And I know it's a lot of things swirling around in the media of, him possibly coming to Cleveland. And, for me, my answer to that is, of course, we would love to have him. He knows that. We had a lot of connections, but, that's kind of out of my range of things of kind of coordinating things. So all I can do is, make a call and see what happens, let AB do the rest.
What made you guys?
All right, now here's the big question, though. What is DeShaun Watson as a quarterback? Here's Watson talking about the fact of him getting back to being where he was with the Texans.
I'm very motivated. I'm very excited to be able to have those opportunities to go out there and prove what I have before and even better. And that's the goal, is to be better than what, people last saw me. And honestly, people are entitled to their own opinions, but at the same time, you gotta respect their opinions. I missed 2 years of football, so if I was in their shoes, I wouldn't put myself in that position either. I gotta go out there and prove it, and that's what I'm looking forward to. So those opportunities for me this upcoming season, I have to take advantage of it.
Well, listen, and you like that answer from DeShaun Watson. Now, he was out of the league for everything of for his own doing. It wasn't because of any kind of an injury, and we've been down that road, and he's been allowed and served his suspension, is back in the National Football League. The concern I have is I don't know what Watson is. Like, I don't. I mean, Keith, I look at DeShaun Watson, and at one point in time, he was a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. Like
there was a time that we were talking about him or Mahomes.
Last year, he didn't look like he was a top 20 quarterback in the NFL.
58% completion percentage, 1,102 passing yards, 7 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, a QBR of 79.
Yeah, like he looked, and this is a guy that has all the guaranteed money, set a new tone, right? The Cleveland Browns were desperate. They couldn't wait to get away from Baker Mayfield. They go out, make the big play, guarantee him all that kind of money. That then trickled down to the negotiations that Lamar Jackson had with the Baltimore Ravens. I'd love to tell you, sitting here on this 31st day of May, and I'd love to make the proclamation that I really believe that DeShaun Watson is going to be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL this year. Everything you talked about with Cleveland is true. Everything, both sides of the football, offense, defense, Chubb, all the things. Even, you look at their head coach, who I do think, has had some failures and not of his own doing. I think because of the quarterback play that he's had and some of the headaches that he's dealt with. Love Amari Cooper. The Dallas Cowboys clearly missed Amari Cooper last year. He's a big-time wide receiver. We know that. I have no idea what Watson is. Like, if you tell me Watson is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL again this upcoming year, then I'm with you. Like hook, line, and sinker. We'll be arm in arm, skipping
Yeah.
down the street, talking about the Cleveland Browns being a team that's going to be a force to be reckoned with in the AFC. I have no idea what that answer is. And I know we call it gambling. We know we call it handicapping. And you're looking at it, and that's why the Cleveland Browns are sitting there right now at 17-1, because the betting public doesn't know what DeShaun Watson is going to be. Because if you look at their entire roster, and if you wholeheartedly believe that DeShaun Watson was a top 5 quarterback, their number would nowhere be close to 17-1. Whether they had DeAndre Hopkins or not, that number would be 7, 8, 9-1 right now.
I would also throw this out too, Moose. If you believe that Watson is going to regain any of that status, you bet that number now.
No doubt.
And you bet it before DeAndre Hopkins potentially becomes a wide receiver there. Because I truly do think if it's 17-1 now, depending on what book you're at, if Hopkins signs there, it goes to 13-1, 14-1, 13-1 in that area.
And Keith, there's an argument to be made there. And I'm not gonna tell you anyone that really believes that is gonna look at it and be like foolish, right? I'm not.
Yeah.
Like you could clearly say, like, Mark, I think Watson's gonna be great. Like, I think last year was just him knocking the ring rust off. I think him being out of football for 2 years, to then have him expect him to hit the ground running with a new team, new organization, new city, and there was going to be no issues whatsoever. Well, that's foolish. I know how good of an athlete he is. I think he's going to be motivated by the fact that people are doubting him now. I think he's going to be motivated by the fact that people have kind of left him by the wayside and said that it's everybody else, but DeShaun Watson can no longer play and that he's going to have a big time year. So if you want to make the argument right now that Watson is going to have a huge bounce back year, I don't fault you for that, because we've seen him. I mean, when he was with Houston, he was an unbelievable player.
Plus 104 for the Browns to make the playoffs.
Yeah, it's good odds.
Right? That's not bad. I mean, basically double your money.
What's their win total?
Let's see. Does FanDuel have a win total here? Win total. Here we go. Got it. Carolina. Let's go alphabetically. I got you. Cleveland win total over 9.5.
Yeah,
10 wins.
Yeah,
Plus 122.
Yeah, well, if you're going to bet them right now at 17-1, then you're betting them over 9.5.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in on the Browns, like, there's ways for you to, put a little bit of money on each portion of this.
No question.
So FanDuel's got season specials, and I placed a wager yesterday. Okay.
What did you bet?
Forgot it. I meant to send this to you and I forgot to. Let me just pull it up so that I know that I got it right. So the Philadelphia Eagles in 17 games last year scored at least one rushing touchdown 15 times. Okay.
Okay.
There's a season special for the Eagles to score one or more rushing touchdown in every regular season game this year. 14-1 odds. I took it.
That's pretty good.
Right? I mean, I'm just hoping there's not that one weird week. But 14-1 odds, not bad.
No.
Bet, turn around, make $280.
No, Eagles
I'll take it.
Yeah, Eagles are going to be good this year, obviously.
Right? And I mean, like, listen, they may end up doing it 16 times and I hate myself and we miss. Maybe I could, whatever. But yeah, the season specials are, and a bunch of the sites have it, a bunch of the apps have it. These FanDuel ones are pretty cool. Like, pick a team, give me a team that you're interested in this year.
I'll
give you some season specials.
Okay, let's go, because we've spent a lot of time talking about the Jets. How about the Chargers? Or no, the Jaguars.
Right.
Jaguars.
Let's go Jaguars. All right, so the Jacksonville Jaguars, I'm going to give you some season specials for them. I don't see a season special for them. That's amazing.
How about Chargers?
All right, Chargers, got you. So you could do to score a touchdown in every regular season game. Not much value there at minus 160. Let me give you a good one. How about this? To throw a passing touchdown every game this year, plus 370.
Yeah.
Does Justin Herbert and or whomever their QB is throw at least one touchdown every game? Does Justin Herbert get to 40 passing touchdowns this year? It's a big number.
It's a big number. I don't know if he does.
Plus 430 for that.
Okay. That's a big number. I don't know if he gets to 40 touchdowns. But you know what I like about this? Like, you can really...
Wow. their rushing number, the same bet for the Eagles, I'm sorry to interrupt you, is plus what is that? Plus 16,000.
Oh, wow.
So 160 to 1.
I would say that there's a correlation where you're looking at those, and that's on FanDuel, correct?
Yes,
All
I'm
right,
on
so
FanDuel.
if you look at these
specials.
FanDuel season specials, like there's a correlation to where if you find teams that you like in the NFL this year, where then you can correlate it to where you look at division odds, conference odds, Super Bowl odds, season win totals, and then you can delve into some of these and how they exactly get there, playing to their strengths. Like I think Herbert over 40 touchdown passes is a little much for me, but
yep.
I think it's just a little high. Like I think he'll have in the 30s. I don't know if he'll necessarily get to 40. I could be wrong. And but there's a way to correlate it, Keith. My point being is that if you really like a certain team, of finding something to not only just bet win totals or season totals, but also looking at some of these individual offensive numbers as well.
Yeah, I mean, like you go to the Chiefs, right? And if you want to just be in on Mahomes, 40 or more touchdowns, plus 115, 5 rushing touchdowns for Mahomes this year, plus 150. Like that's kind of a fun one. Let me give you the Buffalo Bills. That's another team a lot of people are all in on, right? So the Bills to have a passing touchdown every game is 4 to 1. Josh Allen, 15 rushing touchdowns, 9 to 1. Them to get a rushing touchdown every single game is 50 to 1 odds. Just some fun stuff. Like these are some fun things.
All right, let me ask you. Let's just play a little quick game. AFC.
Okay.
Because as you know, as we got a question, and Baby J is right, the Jets finally have a good enough team to compete, and the AFC is a total gauntlet.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to ask you, I'm going to throw out all the contending teams, right, in the AFC, and you tell me the team that you think ends up being a disappointment in 2023.
Ooh, I like that.
All right.
Okay.
Bills, Dolphins, Jets, because we're in agreement that the Patriots aren't that kind of a team, correct?
Bills are going to win 11 or 12 games.
Well, I'm going to throw you out all the complexion of the AFC. So I'm going to give you all the teams.
All
okay,
right.
Yeah, so
okay.
Chiefs, Chargers, Jaguars, Bengals, Ravens, Browns, Bills, Dolphins, Jets. Of all of those teams, which one do you think disappoints?
Bengals.
Why?
Didn't they lose a couple of their pieces on defense?
They did.
Right?
They did. You don't think Burrow can overcome that?
I do. So, but what constitutes a
missing the
disappointment
playoffs?
To me, missing the playoffs. See, I just think they're not going to win the division.
Okay. Well, no, I'm talking about a team that we every year there seems to be a team that, just the year does not go for them, right?
I think Cincinnati will not win. I think we could.
You like the Ravens?
If they don't win,
you like the Browns to win the North.
I like the Browns or the Ravens to win the North. Yes.
Okay. So you don't think the Bengals, but you think the Bengals are a playoff team. Do you think the
wild card?
Okay. But do you think the Jets, Dolphins, and Bills are all playoff teams?
One of them's going to miss the playoffs.
Which one of those three do you think?
I'm going to err on the side of caution and say that Tua probably doesn't stay healthy, and it's the Dolphins miss.
And there's so many people that love the Dolphins this year. I'm with you.
Which is
like the Jets. If the Jets don't make the playoffs this year, it would be if Rodgers is healthy,
failure.
It would be an epic failure. Like everybody would clean house. Like it would be a massive disaster.
Robert Saleh's out. Upper management out. I mean, lots of people are out.
Broncos last year were 5-12. Wilson was a disaster. Everybody was mocking him out last year.
They'll bounce back.
Okay,
I don't know if they're a playoff team, but they're
back to what?
Not
8 wins?
8 or 9 wins.
8 or 9 wins. So you think they finished the year either 8 or 9, 9 and 8?
Yeah. So I go through when I do my levels, and I know we haven't done it yet, and we'll do it at some point, probably in August, where I look at the teams like, all right, 17 games. Are you a 10 win or more team? And those are my top tier, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm going to look at my middle of the pack teams that I think are 7, 8, or 9 wins. Now, those 7, 8, or 9 win teams, injury happens, they become a 5 or 6 win team. No injuries happen, they could win 10 games. So those are my most fascinating teams always, because that's a Cleveland Browns team. That's a Baltimore Ravens team. that I think is going to win 9 or 10 games and should be right there. But like, hey, if there's an injury, they drop, or if there's an injury on a team above them, they go ahead, right? And then there's the cellar dwellers. So we'll get there in August.
Yeah, we're going to do that, and we're going to run through it, and we're going to give you kind of a full gauntlet once we inch closer and closer to training camp and break down each and every team and break down the divisions and look through the conferences and all. If you play the same game quickly here before we take a quick timeout, we'll do some other things before Barnett joins us top of the 11 o'clock hour. If you run through the NFC, like you look at the East, and it's Eagles, Cowboys, and then I think we'd all agree that a little bit of a break with the Giants and the Saquon Barkley contract situation is becoming more of a headache, right? You got the Minnesota Vikings, who nobody wants to believe in. Everybody and their mother is going to be banking on the Lions. We had Costos on last week. He was kind of talking up the Green Bay Packers. You know, if Jordan Love is good, maybe Green Bay is one of those teams that surprised everybody. The NFC South stinks. I mean, it really does. I mean, Atlanta, Carolina, New Orleans, and Tampa Bay. We were just mocking out the Tampa quarterbacks for basically misfiring and can't hit guys from 12, 15 yards away. And you look at their quarterback situation, and then you got the 49ers. I mean, we are, you know, I wonder, and I don't even know if it's out yet. I'm like, Keith, we could easily see a rematch, very, very easily, of Eagles 49ers next year in the NFC Championship game. I mean, because
I think the sneaky team is the Cowboys.
Yeah, and I don't think you're wrong. I think you're 100% right. But I mean, do you think Minnesota, is there anybody in the South?
No.
Like, are you going to look at the Seattle Seahawks? Are they going to be a team? No, neither am I. I mean, there's not much when you look at contention. The Detroit Lions, are you going to bank on Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions? Like, I like Detroit.
What about the Saints?
With Carr at quarterback, they can have that kind of a season?
I'm wondering. I'm not sure. Like, they're one of those weird teams, right? Because if Derek Carr can he turn back the clock and look like, was it 2020 or 21 that he looked like an MVP before he got hurt? 20, I think it was.
Yes.
Like, could he turn that back and Gruden in the fold? Like, say what you want about the, like, terrible emails that he was sending. He's a really good football coach, right? Like, seems to not be a very good person. I'm not trying, like, if we're judging character, I don't know if I want to be his friend necessarily, but if you're judging just on coaching, Gruden is a pretty talented evaluator of quarterbacks and offensive mind. And if he's helping out over there, even if it's just behind the scenes, I just wonder if maybe the Saints make a little run.
Right. So, okay. So you look at, you're making the argument for New Orleans, but truly, you know, outside of that, and they're on the outside looking in the NFC, it's 3 teams.
It's Eagles, Niners, Cowboys. You're right.
Right. It's 3 teams in the NFC, and in the AFC. So that's on championship level in the NFC. Let's look at the AFC quick, right? Can the Bills win a Super Bowl this year?
Yes.
Can the Dolphins?
Yeah.
Can the Jets?
Yeah.
Can the Bengals?
Yeah.
Ravens?
Yeah.
Browns?
I won't go there.
Jaguars?
Even though I like the Browns, I wouldn't.
Jaguars?
Nah, I don't think
Chiefs?
Yes.
Chargers?
I don't think so.
Okay. So you double it up.
So we gave you 6 AFC teams, and like there was a pause in my voice about 2 or 3 other teams.
Correct. So potentially you could look at 8 on the line, but really kind of 6. Like you could look at maybe, if you want to make an argument for New Orleans, 4 in the NFC. Like maybe, right? You could make an argument for probably 8 in the AFC.
Probably, yeah.
You could make an argument for 8. Like, even though, you know, like we're not putting the Chargers on that line, like there will be people who tell you that they think the Chargers deserve to be on that line.
And the Jaguars might win 13 games just because of their division and their schedule.
Right, and they've got an unbelievably young, talented quarterback in Trevor Lawrence, who's only going to get better year 2 with Doug Peterson.
It's a good way to put that. I like
who
that.
now has another weapon in Calvin Ridley that's looking to rip the NFL a new one.
Yeah.
After his suspension. So I'm not saying he didn't deserve to get suspended, but the point being is that Calvin Ridley, was a really, really talented wide receiver and playmaker for the Atlanta Falcons, and he is going to be a stud with the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Jaguars over under is 9.5, and boy, does the book know what they're doing. They set it at 9.5 and made it -150.
Yeah, Yeah, you're gonna have to
They
pay.
do not. They want you to bet the under.
Yeah, but I wouldn't. Like I wouldn't even play.
Yeah.
I like if you don't, and that's where you have to have the money to be able to play and bet the 150. Like the only play to me
Right.
would be Jacksonville over 9.5. Like I wouldn't touch it. Like that to me is
Right,
a
but
stay
you-
away. I just wouldn't touch.
Right,
Even
but-
though I love Jacksonville to win, 12 games this year, I wouldn't touch it. The division stinks. Like I don't believe in Tennessee. Houston. I mean, Houston's going to be just as dreadful as they were this past year. It's a terrible division when you look at that AFC South.
Yeah, I mean, but you have to have the kind of money where you're like, Dave Sharapan would say, betting a dime, right? Like you got to be able to put $10,000 on the Jaguars for the over 9.5.
Well, no question.
For it to matter. Like, what are you doing? Like, even if you bet $1,000 to make $666, like, I guess, fine. Like, you bet $100 to make $66.
Yeah, it doesn't
then
really
like,
do much
what's
for
the
you,
point?
right? What's the point? It's not worth the gamble. It's not worth the sweat. But
No.
here's what you need to know. When you're looking at some of these futures, just look at, and we all know it, just look at overall how deep the AFC is and where the value potentially is. And then you look at the NFC and don't dig to so deep. Because realistically speaking, unless something drastically happens, there's really only 3 teams that are on the championship level in the NFC. And it's 2 of them were in the NFC championship game last year. One of them lost a heartbreaker in San Francisco in the playoff game. And that is the Cowboys, the Niners, and the Eagles. Those are the only 3 right now. Now, injuries could play everything. You tell me Jalen Hurts blows out his ACL week 1, then we could take the Philadelphia Eagles off the board. But we've seen here where you look at it, the AFC, the NFC is not particularly deep. There's not a lot of quality, and all the quality is in the AFC.
Seahawks over-under is at 8.5. The Niners over-under is set at 11.5 at plus money. 12 wins, a lot to ask, not knowing who the QB is going to be.
That is, but you're buying into the system.
Yeah,
Like, think of it.
plus 118 for 12 wins.
I mean, think about where we were.
They can't go 12-5?
I mean, honestly, at this time last year, I didn't even realize Brock Purdy was drafted by the San Francisco 49ers with the last overall.
A lot of people didn't even know who Brock Purdy was.
Right. So, and you and I cover the NFL, and we focus in on the NFL. Then a year.
And you're a Heisman voter. Like, I mean, like your job is
right.
part
I
of
mean,
your
he was
job
never
is
in
to know
that
these
kind of.
college
But you
football
get the
players.
point. Like,
I
mean, the point
yeah.
being is like now a year later, Brock Purdy is a guy that you hope, if you're a 49er fan, is healthy enough to be your starting quarterback week 1. Like that's how it's all changed in San Francisco with the Niners.
Giants over 7.5 feels good.
They got it.
They should win 8 games, right?
I think they should. I mean, Barkley's a headache is now. Giants after the draft dropped their contract number reportedly. So that could prove to be a little bit of a headache.
Yeah, there are a lot of people buying into the Rams. Rams over 6.5. I mean, if Stafford is healthy and Kupp is healthy, like why can't they win 7 games?
I mean, their line last year was so bad.
It was bad. You're right. It was really bad.
Like they
What's
also
the Packers number?
They also got
Packers are 7.5.
Like I'd rather take Green Bay than the Rams. What's the Green Bay 7.5 and what?
7.5 at minus 122. And again, I'm only on FanDuel right now. I didn't look at the other books. Shop your books, guys.
So 7.5 minus 122. Yeah, I would take.
That's not bad.
I'd rather take Green Bay than touch the Rams. I also get concerned about when you have a head coach, as you did last year, that was contemplating his future before ultimately making the decision to stay. And, it's back-to-back years with that. I'm not telling you that he's all in. I just get a little bit nervous and then put my eggs all in the basket of then the Los Angeles Rams going over a certain number. I think the Green Bay Packers feel like Jordan Love can play. I mean, and lean into they're a good enough team, especially in that division, to be able to win 8 games next year.
What are you doing with your Commanders? 6.5 is the over-under, and it's minus 110 both sides.
Yeah.
They getting 7 wins? You think they're getting a 7 to 10?
I don't know. The quarterback situation is terrible.
Yeah.
I don't know what Sam Howell is at quarterback. I really don't. I also go into it, Keith, realistically, they're the 4th best team in the NFC East.
Right.
So, I mean, their number is where it's supposed to be. I'm not a huge Ron Rivera fan. I don't think Jack Del Rio's a great defensive coordinator. They changed their offensive coordinator this offseason. Let's see exactly what that translates to. Offensive line play has been an issue. But am I going to tell you that I think they're going to surprise a lot of people next year? or this upcoming season, I have no idea. I'd probably bank on just way that it's gone for the Commanders. I'd honestly bank on the fact that it'd probably not end all that well. But if Howell ends up being a player, then that could change all things. By the way, did you see, just one quick note on the Commanders because you brought it up? Read the piece the other day that they don't have the trademark for Commanders. It got denied, so they might have to
change it.
They might have to change their name again. By the way, which would be fantastic because the Commanders is a terrible nickname for a team.
I never enjoyed it either. I didn't understand.
The jerseys are awful and the nickname is terrible.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like the football team either.
I wouldn't go there, but like the Washington Commanders does nothing. Like it sounds like a USFL or XFL team. Like it does nothing. Like it's not like there were so many ways you could have done the Washington Hogs. You could have done a number of different things to go.
I might have even kept the color red there. Like I know they didn't want to go with red skins anymore. Like I might have done something with red involved.
Yeah, they had red tails.
Yes, there you go. Yeah.
I mean, that was one of the names that they were doing, which, I mean, there was so many different ways to go, and they chose Washington Commanders. Oh, left hand.
James Grande.
Yeah. The Commanders. That song slaps would be the change their yes.
Nice.
It's just terrible. The Commanders is a terrible name. It's just awful.
That's your squad, though.
It's almost. I mean, but finally, it's almost over. It's almost over. Snyder's almost out.
Yep,
he's almost done.
You can
new ownership group.
Start being proud of your organization again.
Well, yeah, and he is going to clean house, I would imagine, and start anew, which will be great, which will be refreshing. It really will be.
Hey, before we go to break, Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook.
Yeah.
Do you know the Murph workout?
Yes, I've
the
heard.
Memorial Day Murph workout.
Yes.
Did you see his post?
I did. His kid's doing it, and he did it. Yeah.
So his daughters did it.
He did in 39 minutes.
Yeah. So 39 minutes with the 20-pound vest.
Yeah.
Now I've done Murph before many times. Okay.
Of course.
And I've done it with the vest. I've done it without the vest. I love the Murph workout. I didn't do it this year. I was working all day, right? I'm in good shape. I was a CrossFitter.
Yeah, Keith, we know you're in good shape. We know you're
but all that stuff, right? Him doing 39 minutes with the 20-pound vest. One, I would love to see a video of proof that he was doing real push-ups, not like bro push-ups. I want to see that his air squats that he was doing. Oh, I totally doubt it.
Like, how long did it take you to do the Murph workout without the vest?
Without a vest, I can do it in like 41 minutes.
With the vest?
With the vest, my best was 40, just under 45 minutes.
All right.
So 6 minutes more than him.
Yeah, I would say that's BS on his part. Because
yes, exactly.
I've met you in person. You've ripped you showed off your biceps and everything.
Yeah,
you're in peak physical condition. Anytime I ask for a previous workout video, you send it to me promptly.
I got you.
Right off your phone.
Oh yeah, I got you. And like, even not to compare it to myself, do you know that in the CrossFit Games, that's where the best of the best CrossFitters in the world compete? His time would have been the 6th best of all time.
It's bull. It's bull. BS.
Now he's a billionaire.
Yeah, there's no way he did
dietitians,
it.
Nutritionists,
He's looking for
all that
attention.
kind of stuff, right? Yes, exactly. And we just gave.
He's looking for attention. That's what he is. Like, that's it. He didn't do it. I had no idea. Like, I gotta be honest with you, I've never.
No, that time is ridiculous.
When it generated the headlines, and I was busy, so I didn't really kind of dig that. But when it generated the headlines that it did, I kind of figured that must be a really good time. But I didn't really have anything to compare it to. Like, you've done it, and I had really no idea that if that time is indeed true, that it would be the 6th fastest ever.
Yeah. So all right. So think about this. So you have to run 1 mile.
Yeah.
Assuming you're a world-class mile runner, okay, that would mean you probably run that first mile in 6.5 minutes, let's say, okay, because you got to leave a little in the tank. Most human beings that are like most of the good CrossFitters will run that first mile with the vest in about 7 minutes.
Okay.
So I'm making you world class. You got to do it in 6.5. Okay. Then it all also depends on how you partition your things. So the rest of the Murph workout is 100 pull-ups, and that is chest to bar, not like just chin over. Your chest is supposed to get to the bar, okay?
Gotcha.
So that's your pull-ups, not chin-ups, wide grip pull-ups. Then you've got to do 200 push-ups, and that is chest to deck. And actually, I think the real version is hand release. So that means every time you touch the ground, you flash your hands, and then you push up. Boom, up, boom, okay? And then 300 air squats. And air squats means that if this is parallel for your butt, you're supposed to get to just below parallel. Like, you don't have to be like all the way, as they,
Gotcha.
the word, like blank to the grass is what you say.
Butt to the
like
grass.
butt to the grass.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just below it. Then you have to go run another mile. That last mile is death. When I tell you, it is the worst.
Yeah, I'd probably have a heart attack, to be honest with you.
Probably, yeah, because you just did 300 air squats. You realize that, like, the amount that you're doing with your legs,
Yeah.
the first couple of steps you run, you're like, oh my God, I can't even feel my legs. So if you're going to bother lying, don't lie and give a world-class score. That was terrible.
Yeah. Listen, you backed it up. Facts are facts.
He showed a picture of himself with a vest on.
Zuckerberg's a liar.
I totally believe
He's
it.
a liar. He's a billionaire looking for,
So-
just enjoy your money.
The time might be right, but I would love to know what the reps
Like
look
he was
like.
he was a billionaire at like 32. Like, just
How old is he right now?
I don't even know. Like, he's got to be in his early 40s. Like just enjoy your wealth. Do some good things with your money.
He's only
Oh,
39.
he's only 39. So he's a billionaire
Wow.
at 32. Like, just enjoy your wealth. Like, I don't need to hear, like, you're not.
He is in great shape.
I'm not telling you he's
physically
not in
fit.
great shape, but you just proved that Zuckerberg's a liar.
Yes, or either a liar or a cheater, because there's a difference. He may have gotten the 39 minutes, but if every pull-up was like this,
Yeah.
and every push-up was just the little bro push-ups, and if the air squats are just really fast going like this,
Yeah.
then I'm
You're not
out.
impressed. We'll get the thoughts.
No.
We'll get the thoughts on the Murph workout with Dave Barnett, Tour Junkies.
Oh, Barnett, I'm sure has done.
I'm
the
sure he
most.
has. Outside of
Yes.
picking winners, he's out there. He's got the 20-pound vest on. He's sweating.
Yes.
He's running. He's doing pull-ups, sit-ups, push-ups. He's doing it all. We'll get the thoughts of Dave Barnett.
Maybe I'll do the next segment with the 20-pound vest on.
Tour Junkies. Why not?
I got you.
Dave joins us next. It's Moose and Keith with you right here, Better Sports Network.
Moose and Keith. Weekdays at 10 a.m. Eastern.
The word genius is there. Bob Glover, it describes him. Bob, so when's the last time that Twitter defeated you? Because I've been defeated by Twitter today.
I'll tell you how Twitter defeated me one time. I had the mistaken impression that the year that Troy Polamalu won the Defensive Player of the Year, it looked like it was going to go to Clay Matthews Jr. And I tweeted it. And there was a guy on the media bus. He was like, oh, yeah, he's got it. A guy I trust. I won't tell you who it was, but his initials are Mike Garafalo. So I went with it. Got a DM from Rich Eisen, NFL Network. He goes, you sure about that? I go, oh, man. Oh, I just got this wave. Because, like, accuracy to me is really important.
Yeah.
So I'm literally on the media bus. We're just getting back from media day. We are slipping and sliding in Dallas. It's snowing. I get off the bus. I open my laptop. I'm hunched over. And I just, like, literally people are passing me. Bob, what's wrong? And it was Polamalu. And Adam Schefter had retweeted me. Trey Wingo had retweeted me. I'm like, oh, I'm dead.
So when it's Polamalu, then how do you handle that? Like, what was the subsequent
Well,
tweet
I think
afterwards?
I said, got some bad Twitter info. I didn't put Garafalo's name on there. I had to
10 years later, you can out him. I like that. Yeah.
You know, he wouldn't mind that. He knows the stories.
Yeah.
He actually said to me, hey, Bob, I think you might have jumped the gun on that. I was like, oh, crap. There we go.
Campus to Canton on the Better Sports Network.
Would Dion bench Shador?
I don't think he would.
Like, how bad would it have to be? Because we've seen horrendous quarterback play from this Colorado team for the last, 5 years? JT Shroud, Brandon Lewis, just terrible quarterback play. Like, they were 131st, which is dead last in pass EPA per play Obviously, it will be better, but how bad does it have to be for him to bench his own son? Like, I'm not sure he will ever either. Like, especially with the attitude that he came in with.
If they don't get Rashada, who do they bench him for this year anyway? I don't know that there's another answer on that roster that you go to. They don't really have a guy behind him, so I don't even know if we would know the answer to that until the next year, assuming that he doesn't declare for the draft, he returns, they bring somebody else that's competent and behind him.
If they're going to do this the Lincoln Riley way, next year would be the class to bring somebody in. Shedeur Sanders is going to be a third-year player, so he's going to play 2023. I don't think he's declaring for the 2024 NFL draft, so he's going to play in 2024 and then declare for the 2025 NFL draft. And let's remember this, he hasn't had a full recruiting cycle at Colorado. He will have that next recruiting cycle, so maybe he could get one of these class of 2024 quarterbacks there to come to Colorado.
However you're invested in sports, from betting to fantasy, collectibles, and more, join our community on Better Sports Network.
Hey, Moose.
Yo. Oh, you got the 20-pound weight vest on. There you have it.
Yeah, here we go.
Oh, very
That's
nice.
a 20-pound vest for you, all right?
Look at that. Love it. Well done.
I'm going to do the whole segment with this.
Beautiful. Dave Barnett joins us now, Tour Junkies.
97, 98,
Oh, my God.
100. Oh.
He nailed it.
I already did everything else. I was doing the pull-ups last. You guys caught me at a great time. I tell you.
Oh, my God. He barely even broke a
Me
sweat.
and Zuckerberg, we're both 39 years old. I mean, I didn't do that. I didn't have the vest. My vest broke right before.
Okay.
Boys. The Murph is no joke, I tell you.
Dave, you're the best, bro.
Oh, my God. All right. So, Dave, have you done Murph before or no?
That was just amazing. That was just awesome.
I could not dream of doing a Murph. I would die. I would die. I work out.
You wouldn't. It would just take you a while. You wouldn't die, to be honest. You would not die.
Okay, I could do it in a day. I work out. I try to work out 3 days a week, but I will be honest. I am past the days of like really pushing myself super hard, like
into like the pain cave and stuff, right?
Yeah, into like the real, like my heart's pounding out of my chest. I mean, I definitely get the heart rate up and I try to move quickly, but I just can't imagine doing the Murph. I really can't.
Yeah, it's rough. I can tell you the workout that always got me was the one called Fran. It's the thrusters and the pull-ups, and you're supposed to do it as fast as possible.
I hate thrusters.
And they call it Fran lung because you finish and you're like coughing.
Yeah.
And you feel like you're almost tasting blood in your mouth, and you're laying there going, "This can't be healthy."
Yeah,
like I'm not sure why I'm doing this to myself.
That's amazing.
But I got the 20-pound vest for you. I'm going to do the whole segment with this.
That sounds just awful. I got to be honest with you. That sounds terrible.
It's actually kind of enjoyable sometimes.
I had trouble getting out of bed this morning. You guys are talking about tasting blood as you're working out. Like, where are we?
Where are we?
Dave, where are you? Are you at your home? What gym are you at? That's a nice gym.
Actually, it's kind of not. It's kind of a piece of crap, but I enjoy going to it. It's not my house. It's down the street from my house.
Oh, it looks nice. It looks
but I
very
can
nice.
do it by myself. I do have an accomplice today, though, right there.
Oh, beautiful.
Who's that?
That's my mini me right there, my 12-year-old.
Oh, beautiful.
Yo!
Look at that.
What if I told you we'd rather talk to him?
I'm trying to get him to take over the Tour Junkies empire one of these days, but I don't know. We'll see.
Is he a golfer?
What's his first name again?
Collins. Yeah, he's a golfer.
Collins.
He's a really good golfer.
He's a really good golfer. Like, what's his strength? Is he long off the tee? When did you start practicing with him?
Well, he started swinging at like 3 or 4, and he had a good move right off the bat, like just naturally.
Okay.
So we started, I would just bring him along with me just to keep it fun. He didn't really love it. He loves basketball, still loves basketball. So he didn't really love it, but he would do it for a little while until like maybe the last year to 2 years. He's kind of started to get the bug a little bit. And I feel like golf is, I don't know, is golf catching up to basketball for you or what?
I think it's kind of equal.
He thinks it's equal now. So
wow.
Okay.
Yeah, he's just a good ball striker. He's got a great swing. He's got to work on the short game a little bit, but it'll be there. Yeah, he's good.
When do you think he'll beat you?
It's funny you asked that. I told him when he was maybe 10 years old, I was like, listen, if you beat me straight up from the same tees, no handicap strokes, no nothing, mano y mano from the same tees. By the time you're 16, I'll give you $1,000. And so that's he's very motivated to do that. And I am quite confident that he will.
Wow, that's
that's
awesome. Those are fun moments for dads. I always talk about that with, I want to be able to beat both of my kids in basketball for a while. And my 12-year-old Austin, I'm worried he's going to get me earlier than I thought. But anyway.
Heath, I literally, this just happened 3 weeks ago. We have a court at the house, and I built it when he was 2 years old, and he's been on the basketball court since he was 2. And literally 3 weeks ago, he was begging me to play him one-on-one straight up. And I was like, okay, fine. And I did it. And dude, I walked in the door and I looked at my wife and I said, I can't beat him anymore. I'm done. I'm too slow. I can't keep up. I'm done. So
just foul him.
He's got me in basketball.
He's got you.
Oh, yeah, but if you foul him a lot, like if he can't feel his arms, he can't shoot.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, break his arms.
No, don't break his arms. Just little subtle, like old man tricks.
You're not used to those 80s and 90s, NBA rough games. So,
Dave, let's get into a little golf. Memorial.
Yeah.
What should we be expecting this weekend in the Memorial?
It's a great tournament. This is Jack Nicklaus's tournament in Ohio at Muirfield Village, which is a premier course on the PGA Tour. It's going to look great on TV. It's got some Augusta national vibes to it. It's always extremely well manicured. It's going to be firm and fast. There's been no rain for like 2 weeks, which is exactly what Jack wants. Jack likes him some Jack. You know what I mean? Like Jack sees himself as one of the greats, if not the great. And so he likes to put these boys to the test. So it's a harder than average tournament every year. And when it's firm and fast, it's going to play even more difficult. The greens will be bouncy and firm. It's going to take a full-on test of golf. It's a great tournament for these guys to play just before the U.S. Open in 2 weeks. So next week we have the RBC Canadian Open, and then the next week is at LA Country Club for the U.S. Open, which is going to be stunning to watch. So a lot of these big names that are here, this is an elevated event. So we've got all the big names here. I think the only two that we're missing are Finau and Max Homa are taking the week off, but everybody else is here. You've got Scheffler and Rahm and Rory up at the top. It will resemble a major championship in some ways. I could see the winning score being 12 to 13 under, so a little easier than your typical major, but it's definitely more difficult than your standard PGA Tour stop. And the fairways out there are a little generous. Now, if you miss them, the rough is terrible. But it's really a second shot golf course and then around the greens kind of situation because you are likely to miss them at some point. The rough is thick, so chipping out of the rough is difficult. It's all about really, really solid mid-iron play and then strokes gained around the green. So really the total package, we tend to see the cream rise to the top here, a lot like a major.
All right, so when you talk about that, I'm sorry, Keith. When you talk about that, so then are you only looking at the top of the betting board? Like Scheffler right now is 6-1, Rahm 7-1, Cantley sitting there 10-1, Schauffele at 12-1, Rory at 14-1. Like, how deep would you go if you're looking to dabble into the Memorial about guys that could potentially win this tournament?
Well, on the DB's Big Balls betting card, which is now published on tourjunkies.com, I actually dropped it on Monday. Because on Monday there was no weather situation forming at all, so it didn't look like there was going to be any sort of weather advantage. So I went ahead and fired on a lot of the outrights, and those numbers were much longer on Monday than they are now. But the players on that card remain the same. There's a good little group in the middle, kind of in that they're probably in the 30 to 50-1 range now. Guys like Tyrrell Hatton, Ricky Fowler, Corey Connors, Shane Lowry. Those guys I like a good bit here in the mid-range. All four are playing exceptionally well. All four have some experience around Muirfield Village. Tyrrell Hatton with the least amount of experience. But I do think that we could get a winner from that mid-range. It's really tough to see a super long shot come out and get it done, although there's some talented players in the 80 to 100-1 range, but it's not likely.
Being that this is a Jack event, essentially, is there like extra pressure on these guys? Like, how do you feel the vibe is in a tournament like this?
No, I don't think so. A lot of these, now I will say, like, if you read press clippings from years past, a lot of the top names will tell you that experience kind of matters around Muirfield Village. Having a little bit of run around this golf course a couple times is going to help, because there are some intricacies to how to play it, how to attack certain pins. Jack sets it up to basically like how Jack would have wanted it in Jack's prime. And so you kind of, it takes a time or two to learn that and figure it out. And then I think for some of the, so for some of the rookies or first timers at this event, there may be a little bit of like, oh, I got to figure it out, number one. And then number two, wow, I can't believe I'm here. Jack's here and I'm getting milkshakes from Jack Nicklaus and whatever. Like there may be a little bit of that, but other than that, I don't think there's a whole lot of added pressure to it. It's an elevated event. So it's $3 million to the winner.
Right.
It's a big event. So it's a prestigious win, but I wouldn't put it, I wouldn't put it too much higher above other elevated events.
It's going to be a fun weekend. The Memorial is one of those events. I think if you're a golf fan that you're going to watch, outside of the majors, because it is really a fun 4 days. And you mentioned the history of it, which is something that plays into the PGA. I mean, Dave, we talk about time and time again. The reason the tour works is because of the history of some of the events, and the Memorial clearly is there. You mentioned your Big Balls betting card was put out on Monday. Give us, if I asked you the top 5 guys right now at the betting on top of the betting market: Scheffler, Rahm, Cantlay, Schauffele, or McIlroy, those top 5, which one would you fade?
For me, it's so hard to fade Scheffler, but again, if I can get Rahm, who's basically the same player and has a better record around Muirfield Village, there are 2 players in the last few years that have dominated Muirfield: Jon Rahm and Patrick Cantlay. Those 2 absolutely dominate Muirfield Village. So if I can get Rahm slightly longer, and I don't feel like, yes, I understand Rahm didn't have as good of a PGA championship. Scotty Scheffler is still looking like the best player in the world by far, or not by far, but by a close margin to Jon Rahm. I would just rather take the value on Rahm. I do like Cantlay at around that 10-1 mark if he's still there. I like it, but there have been a lot of people talking about how tempting Rory is at 14-1 because it feels longer for Rory, and it is. But I don't think, like, it is an attractive number when you start looking at it, but I still don't love Rory's game where it is at the moment, even though he showed a little form at the PGA Championship. I'd rather have Cantlay or Rahm.
How about Moose's guy, Victor?
I like Victor. Where's he at now? Is he like maybe like 15 or 20-1? Maybe
Hovland sitting at 20.
Yeah, I like Victor. Listen, I mean, I said it's a second shot golf course. He did not have the irons clicking at Colonial like I thought he would. He kind of had a letdown. I mean, the dude gained like 10 strokes on approach at the PGA Championship, and then I think he lost a shot on approach at Colonial. But he's played here a couple times. He's had some, top 25 finishes, I believe. I don't have it in front of me, but Hovland is definitely in play for me as well, starting to drift back. So for me, it'd be like Rahm and Cantlay, then probably Hovland, and then I'm jumping to Tyrrell Hatton and that range in the 30 to 40, 51 range.
Dave, do you think we see a time, because you're connected with a lot of these guys on the PGA Tour, the Live Tour, you talk to a lot of, caddies, golfers, and you guys do an unbelievable job at Tour Junkies. I'm curious with the resurgence of Koepka, do you think there is an itch or more than an itch for him to get out of Live and get back to the PGA Tour?
So the rumor was swirling a couple of months ago that Koepka had put out some feelers or had said that he wanted to come back. That was the rumor. I don't know if that rumor was true. I actually think that let's just say it was true. I actually think that him winning the PGA may make him less inclined to want to come back, because now winning the PGA, doing what he did for Liv and for himself by winning that major is going to pretty much assure himself of being in every major over the next 3 to 5 years. He's not going to be left out of one. And Koepka's all he cares about is Brooks Koepka. So I actually think for him, he probably is now ready to kind of be that guy to possibly open the door for Liv Golf. But I don't know. At the end of the day, I do think Brooks cares just only about Brooks.
Okay.
And I also think Brooks really only cares about majors. Like he didn't care much about playing on the PGA Tour when he was on the PGA Tour in terms of like being a regular event.
Like all he cares about is majors.
He cares about, yeah.
Right. So live makes it a lot easier. You go to an event, you party a little bit. If you do well, you do well. You make a bunch of money,
You
and
play
then a couple of times a year, you go to the majors.
Yep. Yeah, and you play the villain role, and you come in and you be the bad guy, and you beat up on the PGA Tour guys and kind of be the alpha, and that's what Brooks Koepka likes to do. So I bet he's probably now less inclined. Now, when beforehand, when he was looking at possibly being obstructed from playing in any majors because he was on live, that was when I thought he was thinking like, holy crap, I may have made the wrong decision. But now there's no way a major championship is going to leave out Brooks Koepka in the next 3 to 5 years. It's not going to happen.
Have you heard of anybody else from the PGA Tour that might jump ship and go to live? Is there anybody else rumored or no?
It really feels like the tour has done a good job. I mean, with the elevated events, the purses, all that kind of stuff, the new schedule that really doesn't take into, this year we're in like this hybrid schedule. Starting in September, when the new season officially starts, we're going to be in a different type of schedule and cadence for these guys. It will actually be even better for the big time players, the top 70 players or so. So I think the tour has done enough to keep the jump from happening. And guys, the top players are seeing a path to making a bunch of money. I mean, Scotty Scheffler have already made $20-something million this year. So on the golf course. So, Liv would have to come to those guys with an absolutely absurd offer to even think about it. And I don't think they're wanting to do that anymore. So if they do get anybody, it would be maybe another kind of batch of middling or bottom end players on the tour that would maybe take out some depth of a regular PGA Tour event. But I don't think fans would really care all that much.
Well, make sure to check out Dave's Big Ball Bets on tourjunkies.com. Biggest long shot you would take this weekend would be whom, Dave?
Oh, let's see. I got a couple on the card. I like my boy Siwoo was long, but then he's been shortened. He was 80-1 on Monday. I hit him on Monday. I think I saw him at 50 or 60-1 now. So I like Siwoo Kim. I like Harris English. If Harris English is still around 100-1, I like that number. He's got, he's coming off of an injury, but he's
120-1 right now.
120-1. I like that. He's come injury and he's starting to show kind of the old form of iron play that we're used to seeing from Harris English. He plays difficult golf course as well. And the irons have been clicking the last 3 turns played. He had a chance to win last week, and he had a tough Sunday, and he had a ruling against him on Sunday that kind of hurt his chances. But I think Harris English at 120-1 would be a nice, an interesting bomb, or maybe a long shot top 5 or top 10.
What was the bet that Pat lost? I saw it posted on social.
Dude, that son of a gun. That he lost that bet in February. Okay. The week of the Super Bowl. It was our waste management event. I took Siwoo Kim. He took Sahith Theegala to finish higher at the waste management. We spun our betting wheel on the podcast, and the loser had to post a sexy pic of themselves on Instagram and TikTok. Well, it took him that freaking long. I've been bugging him about it. I'm like, dude, you're not paying off your debt. I've been bugging him about it since then. He's like, I got to get my body ready. So I don't know what he's been doing. I don't know what plan he's been on, but if you paid attention, he definitely knew what he was doing. I mean, he had his arm, his hand.
Oh, he knew what he was doing. I saw the
sucking in like crazy, and but he got it done. I let him slide with it, but yeah, he lost that bet back in February.
Oh, he's got to get
now. Just memo to him: if that is what he considers sexy picture, okay.
Yeah.
Now I will say this: we got to give Pat some credit. He'll be mad if I don't. Because by the way, I'm on vacation next week, so it might be Pat next week you're talking to.
Okay.
He did hit Emiliano Grillo last week at 80-1, and he threw down in our Discord. He had him down for a half a unit play, so literally a 40-unit hit on Emiliano last week for Mr. Perry. So he's feeling himself right now. I am now currently in the hole, so I got to climb myself out of it.
All right. 40-unit play is sexy, by the way.
Dave, enjoy vacation next week. Family vacation, wifey.
Family.
Where are you guys going?
Hilton Head.
Enjoy. Play a little golf.
Collins is my new favorite Barnett, by the way, just so you know.
Oh, he's everybody's favorite. He said thank you.
You're welcome, man. You're welcome.
Me off in Hilton Head. We got to figure out where. So.
All right, Dave. Nice. Enjoy vacay, brother. Good luck with all your plays in Memorial.
Yeah, I guess we'll talk to you in like 2 weeks.
Collins, we said hello.
Thanks, boys.
Right,
see you.
See you guys
later.
He's great.
I mean, you would almost think that we planned that out with the workout.
No, it's awesome. I know.
That is amazing. How did that happen like that?
Was it
That was
planned
crazy.
out? It was.
No,
You knew
I
Barnett
swear
was at the gym.
I swear I did not
That's
know.
a lie.
I swear.
That's a lie.
Scouts honor or something.
That's not because I feel like no. I feel now I'm being played.
Nope.
You texted Barnett. You knew he was at the gym.
I did not.
That's a good job.
I did
by
not
you.
text him.
Good job by you.
No.
We'll come back. We'll talk about the A's. Good job by you. Now I feel like a rube. All right, you can take the weight vest off.
Yeah, I'll take it off because we got Geltz coming up. Geltz is
gonna-
going to be like, Keith, take it off.
Geltzeiler's
Take
going
that
to
off. I
join
don't need
us.
that on
We
you.
also got to touch upon the A's and the fan run of the bases.
Yeah.
We got to hit upon that as well. It's Moose and Keith with you on this Wednesday. Thanks for being with us right here on the Better Sports Network.
Vegas Raiders have traded up to 35, and they give up the 38th overall pick. In addition, a 5th-round pick goes to Indianapolis as the Colts trade down. The pick is in. And, Coop, your top 2 tight ends, best tight ends available, are now off the board as Michael Mayer is going to be the Darren Waller replacement in Las Vegas, catching balls from Jimmy Garoppolo, maybe somebody else in the future. But Michael Mayer is off the board. The Raiders have traded up, and I always look at this too from like dynasty fantasy football standpoint. I always like the guys that are traded up for. Michael Mayer gets traded up for as he is off the board now at pick 35. He goes to the Raiders. How does he fit in this system? Not only with Jimmy Garoppolo, but also Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, some significant pass catchers there, including Hunter Renfrow now.
Eric, I love that you pointed that out because that's the part of the draft that people forget when they're doing their analysis. They think about the draft capital, they think about the landing spot, they forget the draft narrative, right? This proves to us that the Raiders, at the very least, had Michael Mayer as high as Sam Laporta or maybe even higher because they're looking around and saying, all right, that guy's gone. We have to get this guy right now. And this guy probably is a better fit for what Josh McDaniel wants to do. He's used to Rob Gronkowski. He's used to Hunter Henry, these two-way tight ends that can block and run routes down the seam. Sam Laporta is not going to do that. He's only 240 pounds. This guy is your prototypical real-life tight end. That's why a lot of people were saying he's the best real tight end in the draft. Clearly, pass catching is at a premium. That's why Dalton Kincaid and Sam Laporta went first. But this guy's going to fit really well into that scheme. My question is, when does he become fantasy relevant? Because the vast majority of tight ends that are fantasy relevant are top 2 targets on their team with Devontae Adams there and Jacoby Myers there
that's not happening.
and Hunter Renfrow there. I mean, when does it happen, Moose? How long do we have to wait?
Yeah, forever. It might be a while. I mean, when you look at it. But I do think he's a great fit.
Bye weeks are so incredibly important in best ball because you can't change your lineup. You can't grab somebody off the waiver wire. You don't make changes. So you've got to be prepared. If you're taking 4 quarterbacks because you want to be sure you got to be very methodical about the schedule, especially the bye weeks.
Yeah, that's a good point by you because I don't, in redraft leagues and in especially in dynasty leagues, I don't give a damn about bye weeks in a dynasty league. I'm taking the talent that I need. Especially if it's like a startup dynasty league, man. And so, that's created situation. Matt Deutsch's league last year, I had a glut of, it was like week 9, I seem to remember. It was the bye week of death for me. Like, it's a 2 quarterback league. I had a bunch of QBs that were like all on the bye at the same week. It was insane. At best ball, you've got to really be strategic about that. And it's almost more important than the statistics that you might put next to the player as the bye week to let you know, no, I can't go there because I got this guy, and this guy, and this guy already.
You have an opportunity to get a quarterback you want, but your first 2 have the same bye week. You just can't do that to yourself. You have to be thinking it through. I do pay attention to bye weeks in my drafts. I just do. It makes me a lot less of a struggle bus situation when it comes to Buymageddon. I don't want to have 4 players. I don't want to have all my wide receivers and just be playing scrubs. I don't want to have to get rid of a player that I like, that's healthy, that's performing for me just because out of desperation.
Now I got a €1, zeros on zeros on zeros. That's what my bank.
Moose and Keith with you on this Wednesday. Good stuff there with Dave Barnett. Interesting kind of video I want to play for you. I think we've got it. The A's video. So, Keith, you sent this to me last night. I was a little bleary-eyed. I was battling traffic going home.
Yeah, Ben Verlander posted.
Right.
Yep.
So Ben Verlander posted. So take everybody a little bit about what this video is we're about to play.
So the only thing I don't know is if it happened yesterday or the day before. That's the only thing I'm not sure which day it was. I don't know if it was Monday or Tuesday. But literally, this is right before like the game hadn't started yet. A fan runs on the field, and it's as simple as that. If it happens at Citi Field or Yankee Stadium, what does everyone think happens to that fan?
He's tackled by security and dragged off. And
Obliterated,
basically
right?
banned from the stadium.
Yep, and honestly, it'll happen Wrigley Field, Guaranteed Rate Field,
Los Angeles,
Fenway Park,
Chavez Ravine,
Dodger
right.
State. Yeah, I'm naming a whole bunch of really tried and true tradition places. But when you go to the Oakland Coliseum, if you run on the field, Ernie, roll it, because this is what happens.
I'm just out here living my best life. Hey, I'm just out here chilling, feeling like a million, kicking it like it's my birthday. Hey, I'm gonna do exactly what I want. I'm gonna sip on something strong, singing. I'm just out here living my best life. Yeah. Like just know tomorrow, be cool with everybody now. We ain't about that drama. Work a little less just to play a little more. I don't know about y'all.
I mean,
no one cared when he rounded.
Nobody cared.
When he rounded home and get back to third. One groundskeeper like swung something at him, and he ran right by, and then he just hops back in the stands and walks off.
Yeah, nobody cares. Nobody cares.
No
It's just like, but now listen, it wasn't during the game. Like if that was during the game, it would have been completely different. So the grounds crew is on the field. They're getting the field ready. It's I don't know how long they are before the game there. The lines were set.
Yep.
So so a little bit different than if it was happening during a game, but still, I mean, the idea of how about the security guard, the guys around the base, he just runs right behind him. Like 10 yards behind him and doesn't even blink, doesn't even move an eye. The only guy that looked like he moved was, I don't know if that was a bullpen guy or whatever, the one that was holding the bag, the A's guy that was decked out in the beautiful A's uniform. And he was just staring at him as he was running by. Listen, fantastic video. It's great. Great music in the back. I mean, it's kind of.
We're not trying to tell people to run on the field. Don't do it.
No, but it just tells you where the A's are at this stage. Nobody. I mean, that's it. Not only is the team terrible on the field, you can just go there and do whatever for the most part. Run onto the field, not get into trouble. Brian Geltzeiler joins us now, Sirius XM NBA Radio. We're not going to talk to him about the Oakland Athletics and how terrible they are.
Are you sure? Because I think he's got a lot of takes on that.
No, we're going to hopefully talk about it. He just disappeared, though. Hopefully talk about the association. We'll get him up here. Yeah, there he is. He's back with us. Talk about the association. The NBA Finals Game 1 gets going tomorrow night in Denver between the Heat and the Denver Nuggets. And Geltz, 28 years of Heat culture for Pat Riley. It is real. It is beautiful. I mean, it is, if you are a South Beach fan, this is I believe the 7th trip to the NBA Finals for the Miami Heat under the guidance of Riley, either as a coach or as an executive, right?
It's an amazing run. He continues to kind of reload and do it with different groups. This is unique in the respect that when you look at the last 2 eras of Heat Finals teams, you had Shaq and Wade with one of them, where you won a championship. Then the second run of 4 years was with the Heatles, was with LeBron and Wade and Bosh. This one's a little different. This one it's their second NBA Finals in the last 4 years, right? And it's with a guy who isn't really widely considered as one of the top 10 players in the league, although he probably should be. You have what's crazy.
I think
a little connection issue.
Yeah, I think we're just having a little bit of a connection issue. So we'll see if we can get Geltz back up there talking about the Heat.
Yeah, the difference between those other runs, and I think where he was going with this, is that in the bubble, Jimmy Butler and that team got a little bit hot. And this time around, and we talked about it very briefly yesterday, this was widely considered one of the bottom 5 offensive teams in all of basketball this year. I mean, the Miami Heat couldn't score. And maybe there's something to be said about a Heat team that is willing to coast through a regular season, try to get their players as healthy as possible going into the postseason, but then even throw at the health part. You're missing Hero and Oladipo. And Tyler Hero, by the way, were you reading? Did you read that? There's a chance he could be available for Game 3.
No, I mentioned that yesterday, right? That he could, yes, that Tyler Hero could be back. Geltz is back with us. Geltz, we lost you there. So what makes this one different when you look at Miami?
Well, it's what they've gotten out of these undrafted free agents. It's some of the shot making that we had from Vincent early in the series, from Caleb Martin late in the series. It's been amazing. The way they've cultivated two-way guys in Vincent and Martin and Strus, and even the contribution from Duncan Robinson. I'll say this. I just heard you guys say this regarding Tyler Hero. Let's slow our roll there for a second. Number one is if he does get back, conditioning is going to be an issue. Number two, look at what they've gotten out of Duncan Robinson and realize you're not getting that of Tyler Heroes here. You can't have both of them on the floor at the same time because it weakens you defensively too badly. And Robinson, so if you're pretty much, you're going to bring Hero back, you're going to neutralize Robinson. And I don't know that you want to do that with Robinson right now. He's played very well for them, and he seems really comfortable in that zone. That zone is designed to hide him and does a nice job. It's amazing what the Heat have done here. You look at who they beat. Listen, they beat a 1 seed, a 5 seed, and a 2 seed. They took care of all of their business. The Celtics, to me, were the most talented team in this league. They found a way to get by in 7 games. How they got there, who cares? They got there. It's a fantastic story. Maybe it ends here in this series, but I have to tell you, I've been sleeping on the Miami Heat since the friggin' play-in tournament, guys. All right? And they continue to surprise me and hit me on the head. And just when I shovel dirt on them, they come climbing out of the grave to grab me by the neck. So I'm going to do it all over again. I'll pick the Nuggets in 7. I think we're going to get a fantastic series. But the Heat, you underestimate them at your own peril.
Geltz, where do you sit on the rust conversation? I feel like it's half the world thinks that Denver's going to come out rusty because they've had 9-10 days off. And then the other half goes, Denver's a well-oiled machine and they'll be fine.
It's a real conversation, Keith, for Game 1. It's very hard to sit that long and then come back on this kind of competitive level and just be sharp enough because Michael Malone faces an enormous challenge. You want them to practice a little bit. You want to run some stuff. You want them to be prepared. You want them to keep their conditioning up. But you don't want to run them so hard that you're going to risk somebody getting hurt. But if you're not running them hard enough, how much are you really keeping them tuned up to be able to hit the ground running in a Game 1? Yeah. So for Game 1, the rest conversation is a very real conversation and a very real issue. For later in the series is where I think the rest benefits you, is that you end up with those 9 days off as you advance into the series. Game 3, Game 4, and Game 5 is where I think some of the fatigue of playing a 7-game series for the Heat starts to wear on them. And the Nuggets, having 9 days off gives them gas in the tank later in the series.
There's other things to get into. I want to ask you about the fallout in Boston, Myers out or stepping down out in Golden State, Geltz. But give us, our audience, a little bit of a feel. Miami wins the finals. How does this series look? Denver wins the finals and is champion. How do they need to play, or how do they need to dictate this tempo?
All right, so Miami winning the series is going to be that they did a fantastic job defensively on every guy in the Nuggets not named Nikola Jokic. Jokic is going to be a problem. And if you worry about doubling Jokic, he is going to tear you apart, finding open shooters and, worse than that, open cutters. And with the open shooters, a lot of those shots are going to be 3s instead of 2s. The Miami formula is we'll live with Jokic getting 40 a game and we will single cover him, knowing he can kind of score at will, but he's not going to kill us from behind the arc. You start with some of these open catch and shoots between Murray and Porter and Caldwell Pope, and Bruce Brown started hitting 3s and Aaron Gordon started hitting 3s. That's a mess for Miami. So I think you have to almost say, listen, we're going to undertake a strategy where Jokic can't beat us alone. I mean, keep in mind, the Lakers in a 4-game sweep did a pretty decent job of defending Nikola Jokic. It didn't matter. So I think you kind of have to throw caution to the wind and make sure you worry about everybody else. For Denver, I am going to want to make sure I play fast. Get easy buckets in transition. They're going to play the zone. Jokic is uniquely suited to tear apart that zone, being the guy in the middle. But you also don't want to let them get their defense set up and let that zone get comfortable. So if I'm Denver, I just want to push the basketball as much as possible. And then the other thing is defensively, I want to use some of my fantastic size on the perimeter to see if I can swallow up Butler and Martin. Keep in mind what happened even in Game 7 of the Boston series, and this was a major head scratcher to me. Robert Williams did an absolutely fantastic job switching onto Butler in Game 7, where he had Butler hesitant to take shots. I mean, Butler took one shot against him on a reverse layup. That was a hard shot to take. He only played 13 minutes. I have no idea why. But if I'm Denver, I go to school on that a little bit. Aaron Gordon's close to 6'10". Michael Porter Jr. is 6'10". These are the guys that you want on Butler and Martin. Swallow them up with size and so you don't really have to double them too much, and you can stay at home on the other shooters, on Robinson, on Vincent. You want to be able to do that. The other thing I think you'll see a lot of Miami here is they'll continue to run a lot of offense and a lot of dribble handoffs through Bam Adebayo with the elbow. They're going to want to engage Jokic defensively as much as they can and see if they can force some Jokic switches onto guys like Butler and Martin and Vincent if they can. So I think that's kind of how it shakes out on both ends, Mark.
How do you view the emergence of Caleb Martin and what this does for, honestly, his career?
Well, his career, listen, his next contract's probably going to be a pretty good one if this isn't just a flash in the pan.
He should have been Eastern Conference Finals MVP, Brian.
He should have been. With that said, I could live with Butler getting it. Butler was really good in the series also. But he should have been. Martin saved them. He saved them in every single way. He's a two-way player. He's always been a great defensive player. I mean, there's a joke I make to my radio partner, Sam Mitchell, that I've been making for a couple of years now. Every team should have a Martin brother on it. I mean, there's another one of these in Charlotte, Cody Martin. I mean, the two of these guys, and the two of them, they do nothing but work hard on their game. Their shooting has improved each year in the league. What they've taught Caleb Martin and what he's worked on in terms of individual shot making, he hit some contested shots and fadeaways that were just tough shots. He was really good on those open catch and shoot threes. The discipline is there. He's a good athlete. He's comfortable playing in pace. He's comfortable playing a physical, slow game, really versatile guy. And listen, I think for Miami, they found something here. And if they can sign him to a reasonable long-term deal, he's going to be there a while with Butler and keeps them competing at a high level.
Geltz, we open up the conversation talking about Heat culture because you would know this better than anybody. You know, Riley, Spoelstra, they talk about the fact that what we do in Miami is not for everybody. Explain that to our audience. Like, what are they looking for in players, and how are they able to target guys and be able to develop them and be able to play within the system and what they're looking for?
First and foremost, Mark, it's about conditioning. You have to be in peak condition. If your body fat isn't at a certain level or lower, you don't play. And they are militant about that. There's not a lot of give there. So that disqualifies a lot of guys that want to pick and choose when they want to be in condition. You know, there's no such thing when you're in the Miami Heat as I'm going to play myself into shape. It does not work that way. Secondly, which goes hand in hand with conditioning, is work ethic. You have to be willing to roll up your sleeves and do the mental preparation to be prepared for games. You have to understand scouting reports. You have to put the time in away from the court. You have to be willing to and be comfortable at a lot of times being sequestered from the world and just be with your team. The Heat are so militant about that. They don't let even employees of the team out of their team bubble when they're traveling during the playoffs. This is how they operate. The other thing that's important, and I heard Jeff Van Gundy make this point on Ryan Russillo's podcast on The Ringer yesterday, and I thought it was a great point. We just went through another offseason with tons of coach upheaval, right? This has been the same guy there for 20 years. Eric Spoelstra, in knowing that his job is completely and entirely secure, can experiment more than many other coaches with things that he tries. It's not a coincidence that the Heat played more zone this year than any team in the last 20 years in this league. Spoelstra can try things, and if it doesn't work, no one's going to turn around and say, wow, I can't believe you did this. Like Mike Budenholzer playing all drop defense Spoelstra can do that, and he has, enough slack in his rope with Pat Riley that he's not going to get punted. There's a trust there. Players know that if they don't like what the coach is saying, they can't go to the team president and say, I want this guy gone. They're going to be told to get your butt back on that practice court and do what he says, because you'll be gone. That's how it works in Miami. The other thing that's important in Miami, and Jimmy Butler kind of defies this a little bit, and I think Miami's okay with it because of how important he is and how hard he works and what he means to their culture. But there is a culture there that starts with Pat Riley and Derek Spoelstra about accepting blame and deflecting credit. They're a team, and Denver does the same thing. Guys aren't telling you how wonderful and how terrific they are. They want to let you know how great their teammates did, how much somebody helped them to get to the point that they did. And we did all this together. There's not a lot of individualism outside of Butler with the Miami Heat. And I think that's a huge part of this Heat culture that we all talk so frequently about.
And it seems like the culture very different in Boston, a team they just beat, right? So Moose alluded to it. What's the fallout in Boston? Should there be a fallout in Boston?
Well, all right. So, yes, there should be a fallout in Boston. This is a very talented team. Went to Game 6 of the finals last year. They were more talented this year. They were more talented against every opponent they faced in the playoffs and still didn't make it to the finals. Listen, I will start by saying this. I've been very critical of Joe Mazzulla, almost to an unfair extent. Because at 34 years old, with like 4 assistant coaches on the sidelines with him, he was so far in over his head. And even in talking to people the last couple of days around the league, the stuff he ran was so incredibly simple. And the fact that Boston didn't have more in his toolbox to use because he didn't install more, because it was very much like a let the players play thing. When it comes to the playoffs, you have to have more options to go to. Your players have to be more prepared. They were not prepared. But he wasn't really given stuff other coaches are given. Listen, he moved from the second row up to the head chair. They didn't replace him in the second row. Will Hardy left. They decided not to replace Will Hardy. Damon Stoudemire took the Georgia Tech job. He was his lead assistant midseason. They didn't bring another lead assistant to help him. So Mazzulla was really left to his own devices, very defensive with the media, threw his players under the bus a ton with the media because he clearly had a hard time with the criticism, used terms like game plan discipline, and we were prepared, but we let go of the rope. Stuff like that. Talking about the lack of execution constantly, that's blaming your players and throwing them under the bus. And what happens when you do that? You get Game 3, where they completely quit in the middle of a playoff game on the road. Just mail it in, and you got to take them to Topgolf on the off day to see if you can get guys back together. So I don't listen. Joe Mazzulla may be a really good head coach in this league one day. This was the wrong team for him to coach. You don't cut your teeth on a title contender. So I do think that if they're smart, they make a change. But I don't know that they're going to make a change. Brad Stevens loves them. He's got some control over what Mazzulla does. And I think that matters to Brad Stevens. I think he's new enough in the president job. He's a little threatened to have a coach that comes in with a lot of their own ideas, because Stevens has an idea what he wants to do. And then there's the Jaylen Brown conversation. And I know the turnovers are awful. He had 8 turnovers in Game 7. And it's not even the physical dribbling part that bothers me. It's the decisions to dribble into traffic. It's the mental awareness part that bothers me the most.
The decision-making, Geltz, was awful. Like, it was, you were watching, you're like, does Jaylen Brown realize this is Game 7, not Game 52 of the regular season?
Well, more, you just can't dribble through 3 premium defenders. Like, you're not, you know what I mean? You're not playing the Detroit Pistons on a Tuesday night in February. Like, you can't, this is a top defense in the league, Mark. And that's the kind of stuff. With that said, you got to be really careful to decide to trade him. I think you got to pay him the money. I really do, because do I want to trade him to Portland to see if I can get Lillard and give up the 5 years where you have him and Tatum at the same age together? And the two of them, really important to note this, the two of them developed a close relationship, Mark. They like each other a lot, So, like, I look at this and it's like, you're going to break these guys up. Like, the grass isn't always greener. I'd want to work with Brown on his game, pay him his money, and get him emotionally invested in our program with the right coach in place, and have him work on the things that his game lacks, because I do think that he can get himself to another level. And I think Tatum can get himself to another level. It's really easy to say, hey, break them up. It's really hard to look at and say, well, who am I bringing in for Jaylen Brown that's going to make a better running partner for Jason Tatum? And I don't know that you have the answer. So to me, it's about, I would change the head coach, and I would largely bring back the same group.
All right, Geltz, they get rid of him. They get rid of Missoula. Who are you bringing in?
I would probably bring in Monty Williams. That would be the guy I would go to. I know Monty lost the locker room in Phoenix a little bit, but I think that what you've seen here out of Boston is how they take advantage of a guy that's too player friendly. I wouldn't want a guy that was so player friendly. I think that if you look at what happened with Udoka, they were all a little scared of him. And I think that was really good because Udoka was able to instill discipline at the times that he had to instill discipline. And I think for Monty Williams in this spot, it would be a really good fit. I like him much better than Budenholzer in that spot. The other thing I would do is maybe think outside the box a little bit. I wouldn't go for a first-time coach necessarily, but I might dig into some guys that have coached in the past and could certainly come in and relish this opportunity. I wouldn't hesitate to talk to one of the Van Gundy brothers. I'm not sure either of those guys would want to come out of what they're doing in broadcasting because they're both absolute stars there, making plenty of money. I don't know why either of them would need coaching again, but that's a conversation that I've had. But when you look at all the guys that were just let go, to me, Monty's a great choice. Listen, I would even talk to a guy like Terry Stotts, who I think could come in and just instill some order and some organization to what they're doing because they completely lack that. There was no willingness to shift on the fly. And here's the other thing. The Celtics have to be willing to invest in the right kind of coaching staff. Whoever you're going to bring in, you have to give them the proper support. It's really important to note that the organization, as much as we want to say Joe Mazzulla failed the Celtics and failed the players and failed the organization, the ownership group failed Joe Mazzulla here in providing him the requisite amount of support for him to have success with this team.
Bob Meyer stepping away from State.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go.
I just want to ask one more. Geltz, quickly, like 10, yes or no. Tatum doesn't suffer that ankle sprain. Does Miami still win?
Yes, but it's a much closer game.
Okay.
Much closer game. Tatum, two things there real quick, Mark. Number one, you couldn't really ISO Tatum in the same way because he didn't have the burst. And the Heat got smart quickly. They realized he was having trouble moving laterally, and they started running a lot of pick and roll at him in the second half, and it was working because he wasn't moving well laterally, and the ankle stiffened up at the half. So, yeah, I think Miami still wins. It was a 19-point deficit. You know what I mean? They beat up on him and beat up on him good. I think a healthy Tatum maybe has that, but I don't think they win the game.
Actually, before we move on, another name in your circles, do you hear Jay Wright ever for any of these jobs?
Only from the college side. I hear plenty of guys that are connected in the college side. Hey, Jay Wright for this one, Jay Wright for that one. I don't think NBA teams are seriously looking at Jay Wright. The other thing is this with Jay Wright, and I think it's important to note this. I don't know that he wants to dive in on the coaching side at this stage in the NBA. I think Jay Wright would very much like to get a team president role, something that Brad Stevens has, type of thing that Lawrence Frank has. I think Jay Wright would like to be there because one of the, you've heard the big question, Keith, about Brad Stevens. Why didn't he just move downstairs with the whole Udoka thing? Once these guys become team presidents, they're not moving downstairs. They saw what happened to Isaiah Thomas in the mid-2000s with the Knicks. When he was president, he moved downstairs. And where's the next place if it doesn't work on the sidelines? Well, they're not moving you back up to hire a coach to replace you. They're getting you out. So guys that are team presidents, they want to stay in those executive jobs as long as possible. And a great way to be kicked from your executive job is to go down on the sidelines and coach. So I think for Jay Wright, he looks at it this way. Coaches in the NBA, unless you're Popovich or Eric Spoelstra, you are hired to be fired. That's the way it works. And I think for Jay Wright, I think he'd rather get into a situation where if he's going to be involved in an NBA team, he's got a little bit more job security than that.
Geltz, Keith was mentioning Bob Myers steps down in Golden State. They offered him some ownership. They offered him to pay, everything they basically wanted for him to stick around. I saw his reasoning that he wants to be with his family. He's not all in. Is there anything more to Myers leaving Golden State?
I think there's a couple things there. First of all, I know that it's been, in a lot of ways, it's been a committee approach. He's not necessarily the ultimate decision maker there. He has next to him on his staff the owner's son, Kirk Lakeup, who's, by the way, I'm not criticizing Kirk in the least. He works very hard. He's always prepared. But the point is, there's a handful of voices there. Mike Dunleavy's become a larger voice. Keep in mind, Steve Kerr was a team president with the Suns. He's a very prominent voice there as well. I think that was part of it with Bob. And here's the thing right now, guys, that no one is coming out and saying that I'm just going to say. The glory of the job is over. The job sucks from here. Okay, I'm not going to put no two ways. The job sucks from here. You got to figure out. You got to be the guy that's going to not re-sign Draymond Green. right? You got to be the guy that's going to tell Klay Thompson, you're not worth $43 million a year anymore, and we're paying all this luxury tax, and we're going to keep it together. We can't pay you that money anymore. You got to be the guy that makes decisions regarding Moody, regarding Jonathan Kuminga. Do you keep him? Does he go? You just signed Jordan Poole to that horrible deal, and you're going to have to find a taker for him. All right, because they're in tax hell and they're not getting out of it anytime soon. And with this new CBA and the second apron that hamstrings you from doing anything, the job sucks. It's really hard now to run the Warriors. It's not going to be easy. All the glory years are over, and Myers is getting out while the getting's good. His reputation's wonderful. He'll write his own ticket somewhere wherever he decides to go. He will be the ultimate decision maker. Bob, this is a really smart career move for Bob Myers. Get out now while you still have a really good name, and that this success all can be hung on your doorstep. And I totally agree with it. I get it. I understand why he's doing it. I'm surprised they haven't promoted Steve Kerr. I'll tell you that. And I think that's a possibility. And maybe his coaching days become short and Kenny Atkinson becomes a coach in waiting there. But the name I'm hearing a lot of is Mike Dunleavy Jr., who's going to end up ascending into that role. And don't get me wrong, guys, it's a really tough job right now with this new second tax apron to be able to run this Warriors team.
What are the Knicks doing now that Scott Perry's out?
Well, all right. So I think part of this is Leon Rose assuming more control of his organization based upon garnering more credibility with the owner. They've had a ton of success this year doing it Leon's way, playing the young guys that Leon all went out and got. And Scott Perry was from the former regime, and guys from the former regime that stay on with Dolan double as spies. So for Leon Rose right now, he earned the ability to get rid of one of Dolan's spies. And that's what I think it comes down to with Scott Perry. If Dolan wanted to find out what was going on and thought something was up, Perry was a go-to guy for him because he kept him on when Rose came on. And don't get me wrong, Scott Perry does good work. He's a smart personnel guy. He works hard. But this is all about, this to me, more than anything else, is about Leon Rose taking that much more control over this organization and getting rid of one voice that is going to Jim Dolan. Jim Dolan, keep in mind, and Mark, I know you'll relate to this too. Jim Dolan operates sometimes like George Steinbrenner used to with his quote-unquote baseball people. Remember, you say, well, I talked to my baseball people. Well, isn't your general manager supposed to be your baseball person, right? Dolan doesn't say it publicly like that, but there's a lot of guys. Mark Workentine, the former GM at Denver, was on his payroll for a long time. Allen Houston's there. Like, he's got a lot of different guys that he talks to and solicits opinions before he says yes or no on certain things. One of those guys was Scott Perry, and worse than that, Perry was in the trenches, so he could tell him kind of what was going on. This way, Rose has assumed a little bit more control of his organization and could put one of his own people in there. One of the guys I think will assume a little more power in Perry's absence is Gerson Rosas, who was the former team president in Minnesota, who, left there in the heels of some kind of harassment scandal. But he has taken a big role with the Knicks, and I think he'll take more of a role here with Perry Don.
Geltz, last one. Finals. Who do you got? Denver and Miami. We got about a minute.
Denver in 7. I think it's I would love to pick Miami. I just can never look at the two talent levels on these teams and reach the point where I'm going to say Miami at this talent deficiency is going to beat a team like Denver. Now, listen, Boston was probably more talented than Denver, and they beat them. But I think it's a different kind of talent. I think the Jokic thing is an enormous problem for Miami, one they didn't have to face with anybody that they've faced. I mean, they had a little bit of it with Milwaukee with Giannis, but Giannis was banged up in that series. The Jokic thing is a real problem.
Yeah, so you like Denver in 7.
I like Denver in 7.
Geltz, you're the best, brother. Enjoy the finals. Thanks for all the time this morning, man.
Always my pleasure, gentlemen. We'll do it again.
Geltz.
Take care.
You got
my
it.
pleasure.
Ryan Geltzeiler. We're flat out of time. That does it
we
for
are.
us. Yes. Keith, good job as always.
You too.
Good
By the
job.
way, the A's have won 2 games in a row. I don't know if you knew that.
Miracles happen. See you tomorrow at 10, everybody.